Hi, hello, welcome to tonight's reading of story from collected short stories of Ruskin Bond. And tonight's story is Escape from Java. Escape from Java. It all happened within the space of a few days. The cassia tree had barely come into flower when the first bombs fell on Batavia, now called Jakarta, and the bright pink blossoms lay scattered over the wreckage in the streets. News had reached us that Singapore had fallen to the Japanese. My father said, "I expect it won't be long before they take Java." With the British defeated, how can the Dutch be expected to win? He did not mean to be critical of the Dutch. He knew they did not have the backing of the empire that Britain had. Singapore had been called the Gibraltar of the East. After its surrender, there could only be retreat, a vast exodus of Europeans from Southeast Asia. It was the Second World War. What the Japanese thought about the war is now hard for me to say, because I was only 9 at the time and knew very little of worldly matters. Most people knew they would be exchanging their Dutch rulers for Japanese rulers. But there were also many who spoke in terms of freedom for Java when the war was over. Our neighbor, Mr. Hartono, was one of those who looked ahead to a time when Java, Sumatra, and the other islands would make up one independent nation. He was a college professor and spoke Dutch, Chinese, Japanese, and a little English. His son Sono was about my age. He was the only boy I knew who could talk to me in English, and as a result, we spent a lot of time together. Our favorite pastime was flying kites in the park. The bombing soon put an end to kite flying. Air raid alerts sounded at all hours of the day and night, and although in the beginning most of the bombs fell near the docks, a couple of miles from where we lived, we had to stay indoors. If the planes sounded very near, we dived under beds or tables. I don't remember if there were any trenches. Probably there hadn't been time for trench digging, and now there was time only for digging graves. Events had moved all too swiftly. And everyone, except of course the Japanese, was anxious to get away from Java. "When are you going?" asked Sono, as we sat on the veranda steps in a pause between air raids. "I don't know," I said. "It all depends upon my father." "My father says the Japs will be here in a week, and if you are still here then, they'll put you to work building a railway." "I wouldn't mind building a railway," I said. "But they won't give you enough to eat, just rice with worms in it, and if you don't work properly, they'll shoot you." "They do that to soldiers," I said. "We are civilians." "They do it to civilians too," said Sono. What were my father and I doing in Batavia, when our home had been first in India and then in Singapore? He worked for a firm dealing in rubber, and 6 months earlier he had been sent to Batavia, that is Jakarta, to open a new office in partnership with a Dutch business house. Although I was so young, I accompanied my father almost everywhere. My mother left when I was very small, and my father had always looked after me. After the war was over, he was going to take me to England. Are we going to win the war? I asked. It doesn't look it from here, he said. No, it didn't look as though we were winning. Standing at the docks with my father, I watched the ships arrive from Singapore, crowded with refugees, men, women, and children, all living on the decks in the hot tropical sun. They looked pale and worried, worn out and worried. They were on their way to Colombo or Bombay. No one came ashore at Batavia, Jakarta. It was in British territory. It was Dutch. And everyone knew it wouldn't be Dutch for long. Aren't we going to? I asked. Sonu's father says the Japs will be here any day. We have still got a few days, said my father. He was a short, stocky man who seldom got excited. If he was worried, he didn't show it. I've got to wind up a few business matters and then we'll be off. How will we go? There's no room for us on those ships.